All of a sudden, Huey opened his eyes halfway and groaned a little bit. He felt like he must have slept for a long period of time. The Freemans were the first to see Huey waking up, followed by Sydney, the Du Bois, the Woundclears, Rummy, and Uncle Ruckus. They were all surprised that Jasmine had rescued him just in time. During this time, Huey turned his head slightly to look at Jasmine, who was praying. "Hi, Jasmine," he said. She thought she heard his voice. Thus, she looked up at him and saw that he was awake. "Hi, Huey," she greeted him. He smiled at him, resulting in her smiling along with him. How was your nap?" Jasmine asked, as her lover was sitting up. "It wasn't too bad," Huey said, letting out a yawn, "although it felt like I just came back from the dead." He also touched his throat, and I felt like I got an apple pea stuck in my throat. "What matters, Huey, is that the spell is broken," Jasmine stated. Knowing that what she was talking about, Huey nodded and smiled. "Yeah, you're right." He hugged Jasmine, who hugged him in return. "And another thing," Jasmine added. "Hey, Huey, I love you." Huey placed his hand on her left side of her face and smiled. "I love you too, Jasmine." She wrapped her arms around his neck, whereas his arms were wrapped around her waist. Finally, they shared a long-awaited kiss, resembling the start of their relationship. Everyone cheered with glee, all except Grim Rummy, who had to go pee. Riley ran up towards his brother and gave him a hug. "All right, Huey," he cried. "You're back. Oh man, I missed you, brother." Huey hugged his brother in return. "I missed you too, brother." "Thank heavens," Robert said, as he walked towards the boys. "We thought we lost you, Huey. It's so good to have you back, though." He then hugged his grandson. "It's great to be back, Granddad," Huey said, hugging his grandfather. While the Freemans were having a reunion, Jasmine's parents walked up to her and gave her a hug. She hugged them in return as well. "Well done, Jasmine," Sarah said. "You did great." "Thanks, Mom," Jasmine said. "Now are you still up for horseback riding?" Tom asked. After giving that much thought, "Actually, Dad, I got something else in my mind other than horseback riding." Her parents knew what she was talking about, so they became supportive with her decision. "If you want to join the martial arts team for the summer, then we'll give you the opportunity," Tom said. "Thanks, guys," Jasmine said, hugging her parents again. She turned to look at Huey, who was still hugging his family. He looked at her with a smile, and with the help of his grandfather, Huey got up and from the flower bed and walked towards Jasmine. She picked up his katana and said, "I believe this must be yours, sweetie." She then handed her boyfriend his sword. "Thank you, hun," Huey said, retrieving his trusty weapon. Jasmine then got down to the ground on one knee and bowed her head. He knew what he was about to do, so he gathered everyone's attention. "Before we go, there is something I must do," Huey said. He turned to Jasmine and touched one shoulder and another with his katana, all for while saying, "For facing today's quest with determination, courage, and strength, I now dub you, Jasmine Du Bois, as fellow master of my martial arts team. Congratulations." Everyone in the group cheered. Riley gave his brother's girlfriend a black belt. "Nice work today, Jasmine," he said. "Thank you, Riley," Jasmine said. Then she and Huey hugged once more, before sharing another passionate kiss. Later that night, Jasmine tied her hair back, her black belt on the karate suit, before calling it a night. She got into bed and said, "Good night, Huey." She then turned out to her lamp and went to sleep. In the Freeman household, Huey was in his room in his pajamas, waiting for his brother. He said, "Good night, Jasmine. See you tomorrow." Riley came into his bedroom, after going into the bathroom and closed the door. "Who's you talking to, Huey?" he asked. "Joe, just wishing Jasmine a good night," Huey answered, getting into his bed. Riley was also getting into bed too. "Man, you're so lucky today," he said. "I wish the same thing could happen with me and Sydney." "You like Sydney, don't you?" Oh, Huey said. Riley began to blush before shaking it off. Yeah, but as a friend, you know what I mean, he said. Huey then grinned a bit and said, Oh, I know what you mean, Riley. I know what you mean. He turned off the lamp that was between the boys. Good night, Riley, Huey said. Good night, Huey, Riley yawned as the boys went to sleep. But about 30 seconds later, Riley looked at Huey, who was in the process of drifting off. Huey, he asked. Yeah, Huey asked. You snoring it yet? Riley asked. No, Huey said. I got no apple piece in my throat anymore, remember? About 5 seconds in, Riley turned to his side. Huey, he asked. Yeah, Huey said. You still a bitch? Riley said. He chuckled while laughing. Turning his back, Huey opened one of his eyes and looked at him. Good night, Riley, he said, going to sleep. Good night, Huey, Riley said. They both went to sleep. Barely a minute later, Riley woke up to the sound of snoring. He covered his ears and groaned. Not again! He turned to his side to see Huey quietly snoring in his sleep. Huey, Riley said, you snoring again? He tried to go back to sleep, while placing a pillow on his face to block out the noise in the process. However, Huey began to snore a little louder. Riley lifted a pillow off his head and sat up. Yo, Huey, cut it out, he said. His brother turned to his side while he couldn't see him. Alright, if you don't want to cut the snoring, I'm gonna move to the living room, Riley threatened. Little did he know, he was only pretending to snore because he opened one eye while doing so. Within a matter of seconds, Riley got very irritated with his brother. Thus, he got out of bed and began to walk out of the room. Okay, that's it, he said. I'm heading out onto the living room. I ain't lying. Riley walked out of the bedroom. Huey then turned to the other side and began to laugh a bit. Gotcha, he said, before going back to sleep. Only a few seconds in, Riley opened the door to see if his brother had stopped snoring. Huey, hey Huey, he said. You stopped snoring yet? As soon as Riley asked, Huey snored again. Didn't think so, Riley said. Closing the door again, Huey opened his eyes a little and said, You know, it's a nice to poke a fun out of a younger sibling every once in a while. He laid his head back, folded his arms at the back of his head, and this is the best day ever, Huey said. He drifted off to sleep, knowing that tomorrow is a brand new day in Woodcrest, Maryland. And that, my little pretties, was The Revenge of Stinkmeaner, a Boondocks fanfiction written by Bailey Maloney. My final thoughts on this story? Okay, to be completely honest, I've never heard of the Boondocks or ever watched it, but after reading this story, I'm considering and actually reading more stories with Boondocks, because to be fair, I've never heard of the Boondocks until Bailey mentioned it. Believe sometime in one of my streams, I do remember she popped by and told me that. So I have to say, it seems like an interesting concept for a show, so I'm gonna have to consider watching Boondocks, although I haven't. Maybe I might have saw a clip of it once on TV. I don't remember though, because it's been quite a while since I last sat there and did it, so yeah, I mean, I do like how well made the story is, along with Stinkmeaner and that, and I mean, this is actually making me want to go watch Boondocks, which I'm gonna have to consider watching because I've never seen the show before. Like, I probably did hear from a few people about it, and I mean, it's a pretty interesting show. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty interesting for what this show is. Now, I like this story because it's basically a Snow White version of the story, Snow White spoof of the story, except the princess, doesn't, get poisoned by the apple. It's the prince. Well, I know it's Huey and Jasmine, but I'm just saying, that Huey gets, eats the poison apple and then falls into a deep sleep, and Jasmine becomes a hero and saves him. I mean, that's pretty interesting because most of the time it's the prince that usually saves the princess, but I mean, there are some movies and stories that did have the princess becoming a hero, but I mean, that's just me though. Like I'm gonna say, I mean, I really like how well made this story is, especially with the whole concept of it being of its own self, and especially with, the fight with Stinkmeaner. I mean, I thought that was pretty neat too. Although I don't know the characters really much, I do know the Freeman characters, but the Stinkmeaner character, I somewhat probably do know him, but at the same time, I really don't know because I've never really watched the Boondocks, if I'm gonna be honest. So I'm gonna consider watching it, but yet again, that's gonna depend if I decide to. I mean, it seems like an interesting concept. I'm not gonna lie there. So with that being the case, and that being said, I'm going to sit here and say this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas. And this is simply my own personal thoughts. Now, before I go to the final rating, I'm going to say I like the grammar. The grammar of the story is pretty good, as well as the sentence structuring, the storyline, and everything about it just went out perfectly. Like, I mean, I can honestly see Boondocks doing something like this. Like, it's not completely out of the ordinary for it, although I've never seen it, so it's still pretty good. Anyways, with that being the case and that being said, my final rating of this story is a 10 out of 10. I mean, I really thought it was enjoyable. It's a pretty good story. I mean, I like the concept, I like the grammar, I like how well made it is. I like that Jasmine got to be, the hero of the story. It's pretty cool. And I really do like this story, Bailey, and you did a pretty good job on this story. So, yeah. I mean, funny thing about this, I remember Bailey sent this to me back in 2021, which was last year, and I was going to narrate it around the time when she sent it, but I got so busy with other stories, and then by the time I wanted to look at it, I just couldn't find it in my Gmail, so I had to look through all my Gmail, and I finally was able to find the story again, and now I'm narrating it, which is pretty interesting, the fact I found this. Like, I was going to ask Bailey if she could send it to me again, but I found this story, so yeah. Anyways, with that being said, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Well, it's not really a creepypasta, but it's a fan fiction. But you guys can feel free to state what you think of this story. Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you're new to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.